while we were seeing a frayed relationship, to say the least, with the Russians, we were seeing the relationship with the Chinese in the face of the tariffs imposed by the president. As I noted at the outset of the broadcast,
Yes.
Everybody in the orthodoxy, in the political press and business press as well, thought, oh, this is, they were clucking and clacking and wailing about those tariffs, oblivious to the fact the United States hasn't run a trade surplus in 50 years.
Well, that's right. And this is part by how President Trump won. He took issues like trade, which were mired in single digits in the polls. In some polls, they were an asterisk, which means it didn't even achieve 1% in terms of what's the most important issue. But he realized it's an issue of fairness. And this president made a commitment that he is making good on every single day to America, to American interests, and to American workers. And what he's saying to China is they launched a 301 investigation. His USTR came back and said there are violations and we can take action to make this more fair, stop this theft of our intellectual property and the stealing of our future innovation in this country. And by the way, the president is also sick of this economic aggression, the appeasement that we're expected to always give to countries like China. Doesn't mean we won't be trading with them. It just means that you stop screwing the American worker and putting us on the wrong side of the deal. Lou, I want to make a very quick, important point. Every time that people breathlessly predict something tragic will happen and occur from an action President Trump takes, it never happens. He pulls out of the Paris Accords. You can't do that. Right. We'll all die the next day from global warming. Nothing happens. You can't keep the commitment of 5 presidents and actually move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognize it as the capital of Israel. Bad things will happen. Doesn't happen. And then we're told you're going to start a trade war with Russia, with China if you do this. It doesn't happen. In fact, the stock market springs back today because the predicted trade war simply doesn't happen.
Well, it hasn't happened. And of course, as a strategy to this point, the president is on the right side of history once again. As you point out. We're also, however, looking at a country that has been extraordinarily aggressive and expansionist in its policies, obviously on its way to fulfill its hegemonic designs throughout Asia, the Pacific region. China will not be milquetoast in any way. We can't expect them to act like we have for the past half century because they're far smarter than that. But I think that the president doesn't get enough credit for saying to the Chinese, here's the issue, we want you to reduce your surplus with us by $100 billion a year. And again, people just reacting reflexively because they're such a hidebound part of this orthodoxy led by the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and all of the other establishment hacks in that city that he went to war against when he started campaigning.
Well, Lou, let me just say this. Battleships turn very slowly, but they can sometimes sink very quickly. And people better realize who the captain is in this town. He came here to disrupt, to change the way of doing business. Yeah. The American people responded in kind. And I still feel like there are organs and organizations in this city, remaining nameless, that don't respond the way that aren't honoring the will of the people and aren't really adapting themselves to this president. They expect him to adapt to the city. That's not going to happen. And I would also tell you, when it comes to matters like this spending bill, this president he's the negotiator, the deal maker in chief. He will be much more involved in the future. We're going to do this again in 6 months, and he's put everybody on notice. Yeah. Do not send me anything like this again. $700 billion for the military. Had he not signed it, then people would say, oh, you're holding the military hostage because you didn't get everything for your wall. So it's one of those situations where...
You had Paul Ryan, for crying out loud. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're all bragging about the fact they stuffed him on the issue of the wall. I mean, this is an insult. Let me finish. Right. This was an insult from the Speaker of the House. This man is absolutely an obstructionist fighting this president at every quarter, and his base, the president's base, is outraged at signing that $1.3 billion, $1.3 trillion spending bill. All understanding his motivation with the military and appropriately focused on that issue. But my God, for a speaker to act like this and to get away with it it's damnable.
Well, the president has proven he can work with the leaders in Congress. He's invited the Democrats to the table many times. They just keep walking away.
I don't think he ought to do a lot of that, Kellyanne,
and
just
well,
between you and me.
They just keep walking away. He shows how phony the exercises are on their side. But let me also say
he's not going to get love from DACA. He's not going to get love from
That's right.
Schumer, and he's not going to get it from Pelosi, and everybody peddling that stuff around the White House is full of it. It's that straight up.
But let me just point out to you something very important here. Congress's approval rating is still mired at just above 10%, I think. It's in the low small digits. You see the president's approval rating actually going up, even though all the narratives about chaos and churn and all this nonsense coming from the mainstream media that those of us who work here don't experience. We see a president very focused on making good on the agenda that he promised, and he's making good on that. These tax cuts, you can't talk about them enough.
You don't want to push that too far here. Because what he promised was a wall.
Yeah, he better get it.
It's been 15 months. Well,
guess what? I agree with you.
This is a president who was elected because he isn't the guy who says, just wait. He's the guy who said, we're going to have a smart government and we're going to do what we said, and he's doing a historic job in delivering on that. But there are
Look, if he can do it on his own, he would, Lou. If he could sign an executive order for it, you know he would.
I understand.
I think some construction and fixing is happening today.
Putting up with him within the Putting up with him within his own party turns the stomachs of a lot of folks in his base. So we look forward to the next 6 months in this historic presidency.
He has said he's frustrated. He said he's frustrated. He held that whole... Yep, he made it very clear the other day. He's listening to the generals who want the military funded, but he also made clear, as did Secretary Nielsen, that the Congress didn't listen to the men and women at DHS who are asking for reinforcements, who wanted things, and he wants that wall. It was a centerpiece of his campaign, but he's not making good on the campaign promise with the wall. He's protecting this country. We're a sovereign nation that has to have physical borders. We need to keep the poison out of our communities as well, and he's made that very clear.
You're talking to the choir here. And by the way, the entire audience of this broadcast. That's why they want the damn wall, Kellyanne.
Yeah.
Kellyanne Conway, thanks so
Thank you.
much. Good to see you.
Take care.